Hi, everyone. My name is Bridget Bell. I work in the adult department at the Glen Ellen Public Library. Thank you for coming to our Solar Power Hour virtual program. I'm here to introduce our speakers to you. We have Christina Yuzo from the Citizens Utility Board and Adam Perry, a professional who works in the solar power industry. They will be speaking with us tonight about solar power and resources for people living in Illinois and the Chicagoland area. So please welcome our speakers.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Christina Yuzo and I work with the Citizens Utility Board. And we've partnered on this specific program with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, or MREA. So I'll give just a little bit of background about those two organizations before we get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Well,
also, one quick note that I forgot to mention, if you guys think of questions during Christina's presentation, feel free to put them in the chat box and I can field them at the end, and we can also open it up for questioning at the end as well.
Great. So the Citizens Utility Board, or CUB, we're a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization. We've been around since 1984 and we fight on behalf of all Illinois utility ratepayers to try to keep utilities as affordable as possible. And since we were founded, we've saved consumers more than $20 billion, primarily by fighting proposed electricity, natural gas, and telephone rate hikes. We're also a part of the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, which is a coalition of organizations fighting for affordable renewable energy legislation that will help grow Illinois' renewable energy economy at the state level. And the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, or MREA, is a nonprofit that focuses on education. They're based in Wisconsin, and they do a lot of education for both homeowners who want to become more sustainable and reduce their carbon footprint. And they also do a lot of education and training for people who want to build a career within the renewable energy sector. So they're a great organization, and they've run these types of solar programs all throughout the Midwest. And we'll be talking more later about how those programs work. So here's the agenda for today. We'll start with the benefits of going solar. Next, we'll talk about the basics of going solar and how it'll look on your home. Then we'll talk about the incentives available for going solar, both state and federal. Next, we'll talk about your options for going solar, and we'll talk about the difference between leasing versus owning a system. We'll talk about Solar for All, which is Illinois' new low-income solar program, and we'll also talk about community solar, which is another new program in Illinois. And then we'll end with talking about the Solarize Chicagoland group buy. For that group buy, the selected installer is Wind Free Solar, and Adam is a head of project development at Wind Free Solar. So we'll be passing it to him at certain points during the presentation to present some of the more technical info on how to go solar. And then he and I are both available for any questions that you have about solar or anything renewable energy related. So we'll dive right in. One of the main benefits of going solar is that it's really the right time to go solar. Right now in the US, we have 77.7 gigawatts of total installed solar capacity, which is enough to power 14.5 million American homes. Of those 77 gigawatts, 17 of them were installed just last year in 2019 alone. So 2019 was a really big year for solar in the US. Last year, solar accounted for 40% of all new electric generating capacity added to the grid. That was more than any other energy source, and it was the largest share that solar had ever made up. So the fact that it's a growing industry and a booming industry is good for people who want to go solar now, because it's driven down the price a lot, because there's just more companies and a lot more panels being produced than even 5 years ago. But at the same time, when you install solar, you can feel really confident that those panels are going to last a long time, because we've been improving upon the same technology over the past 50 years. And people who, there's people who installed solar 25, 30 years ago who are still getting really good output from their panels. And so you can feel confident when you install panels that they're going to last for a long time. Additionally, going solar can help increase the resale value of your home. So Zillow found that homes with solar tend to sell for about 4% more than similar homes that don't have solar panels. And then finally, going solar pays for itself. So we'll talk more about the financials of going solar later, but typical payback time is about 4 to 7 years in Illinois. So that means within 4 to 7 years of installing the system, you will have earned back all your initial investment through your savings on your energy bills. Then there's also the environmental benefit of going solar. The average solar system in Illinois over the course of 25 years can offset over 260,000 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions. That's equivalent to any one of these 6 things. So it's equivalent to the amount of carbon sequestered by 140 acres of forest. It's equivalent, and it's also equivalent to diverting 41 tons of waste from a landfill. So it's equivalent to any one of these 6 things. I always just say, pick whichever one makes you happiest, and you can think of your solar panels as having that much of an impact on the world. So we'll get into solar basics now. One of the first questions people tend to have is, that all sounds good, but does it work in Illinois? Do we get enough sunlight in Illinois? And the short answer is yes. But the longer answer, what we're looking at here is a measure of solar irradiance. This is basically a map showing each area's solar resource. So you can see our neighbors in the Southwest have the best solar resource, the best solar exposure in the US. That's not surprising, but we still get good solar exposure here, even in Northern Illinois. We're in these like light greens in Illinois. So over the course of the year, we're still able to get enough solar exposure to offset your usage over the course of the whole year, which is what we're concerned with. A helpful comparison is to compare Illinois to Germany. That's because Germany has the highest installed rate of solar per capita of any country in the world. But if you look at their solar resource, they're all the way down in these blues and purples because they're farther north than Illinois is. So they're able to make it work with significantly less sunlight than we have in Illinois. So if they can make it work, we can definitely make it work. And our incentives also take into account the amount of sun that we get in Illinois. So we'll talk more about those incentives and how they work later. I'm going to pass it to Adam to present a couple of the slides about how solar panels will look on your home.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, hi everybody, my name is Adam. I am head of project development with Windfree Solar, and we're going to go over how solar would work for your home. So first and foremost, the sun is shining on the solar panels. As you can see in number 1, the photons from that sunlight are going to excite the electrons in the solar panels, which will create what's called DC or direct current energy. As the panels become excited, as that DC current is produced, it's not going to be usable by the home in that form, so it would need to travel to the inverter, number 3, where it would be converted to usable energy, which is AC, or alternating current energy. That power would be used by the home, and anything in excess would go to the electric meter, number 4, where it would be tracked, accounted for, and then sent back to the grid for net metering credits. So up next, we have a system dashboard. This dashboard is very useful to homeowners so that they can track production or diagnostics for their system. Now, this is going to look a little bit different depending on what type of inverter you choose for your home, and there are a few different options. We'll talk about that next. So first up, we have the traditional string inverter. This is no longer really used in residential solar and is typically used in commercial solar where shading and other type of losses are not really a concern. Brand names here would be things like SMA or Fronius and Shint. So as those technologies advanced in solar, we came to 2 main options. That is the micro inverters like Enphase or power optimizers like SolarEdge. Now, N-phase microinverters, you're going to have 1 small or micro inverter on every single panel, and this works really well in shaded conditions or when there's multiple panel orientations, which is very common in residential solar. Now, with power optimizers, it's very similar where you're still going to have 1 optimizer on every panel, but you're still going to have that main central string inverter. And this is seen as somewhat of a compromise between your traditional string inverter and the slightly more expensive micro inverters. So when we are looking for candidates for solar, what would make a home a good candidate, we are looking for directly due south, southern facing roof, not a lot of shade, not a lot of obstructions, chimneys, vent stacks, things of that nature in the area. East and west also works well, just not quite as well as directly due south facing. If you're curious if your home is a good candidate, you can feel free to use something like Google Project Sunroof, which you can see a screenshot on the slide right now, or you can reach out to me and I can provide something very similar to you. So when we are mounting the panels on your home, we are going to be installing directly parallel to the pitch or the slope of your roof. We do use an aluminum-based racking system to flash the solar panels directly into your existing roof, so there's no fear of leakages or any sort of damage from extreme weather, which is really important to note since we are in the Midwest. These systems are hail, snow rated, and they're built to last. And finally, a thing to note is that these systems are grid tied, which means if there was an outage, if there's a grid outage, your system would be turned off as well and your home would essentially be left in the dark. Now, this is what's known as rapid shutdown, and it's an advanced safety measure designed to protect linesmen or first responders that are operating in the area.
Great, thank you, Adam. So the average residential solar installation in Illinois is 6.5 kilowatts, and this is a photo of what that might look like on your home. That 6.5 kilowatt system is estimated to produce 9,000 kilowatt hours in the first year of its production. So kilowatt or kW is a measure of power, and your system size will be measured in kilowatts. So things that will affect the number of kilowatts of your system are how many panels you get and what type of panels you get, because different panels have different power output ratings. Then kilowatt hour or kWh is a measure of electricity generated or used. And so every day your system will produce kilowatt hours of solar energy, but it'll produce a different number of kilowatt hours based off of what time of year it is and how much sun we get that day and the weather and things like that. So just wanted to help make that distinction because you'll see these abbreviations on both your utility bills and on your proposals that you get for going solar. And we say that this is estimated to produce 9,000 kilowatt hours in the first year because there is a little bit of degradation in the panels. Just naturally, they decline in their output a little bit every year, but they're warranted to only decline a certain amount, and they're typically warranted to only decline about 0.5% in their output per year. So by the end of the 25-year warranty, your panels will still be producing 80 or 85% of what they were producing in that first year. So just don't want people to think that there's like a steep drop off after that first year. So as Adam said, when you're connected to the grid, that means that your system will be turned off if there's an outage. But there's a lot of really good benefits of being connected to the grid. And one of the main ones is that you're able to participate in net metering. Net metering is the name of the process where you get credited for the extra energy that your system is sending to the grid. And it's really important to have a good net metering policy because the time of day where our homes are using the most energy does not always line up with the time of day where your solar system is producing the most energy. And so that's what this graph is showing down here. We have midnight to 11 p.m. So this is over the course of one day. Blue bars are showing energy used by the home at every hour. And this yellow is showing typical solar production. So you can see in most homes, it's typical to have a little peak of energy usage in the morning as people get up and start getting ready for work and for school. And then it'll dip down during the middle of the day. And then there'll be an even bigger peak in the evening. And this is from, cooking dinner and watching TV and using your computer and things like that. But that doesn't line up very well with the typical time where your solar panels are producing the most energy, which generally peaks between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So all of this extra energy is being sent back to the grid, and it's really important that you can get credited for it. Just one thing to note that this usage profile looks a little different right now if you're working from home, and if your kids are at home, it won't level off like this during the middle of the day, but this is typically what residential energy usage looks like during a more normal time. So the good news is that in Illinois, we have a really strong net metering policy. ComEd is required to credit you for that energy that you send back to the grid at the same rate that you're buying energy from them. So it's called one-to-one net metering, and it's the best form of net metering for homeowners because it's going to have the biggest impact in reducing your bill. A couple other things to note about net metering is that it will never completely zero out your bill or eliminate it. Unfortunately, some solar installers during their sales pitches might say things like, never pay a utility bill again, but that's not true because there's certain fixed charges on the bill that you will still have to pay. And we'll show an example of what the bill will look like, your ComEd bill will look like with net metering on the next page. With ComEd, the net metering credits will roll over from month to month, and excess credits will expire in April. That allows you to build up a bank of extra credits during the spring and summer months that will clear out, but you'll be able to use those during all of the winter months. So in Illinois, typically residential solar systems are sized to overproduce in the spring and summer to give you that bank to keep your bills low throughout the winter as well. So that's what this graph down here is showing. We have the months of the year, January through December. Again, blue bars is energy usage and yellow bars is energy produced by your solar panels. So you can see in these 3 months, the system produced more energy than the household used. And so for these months, these extra credits will be rolling over and would be applied to the future bills. In this example, the system is only sized to offset 73% of the total household energy usage over the course of the year. Typically, solar companies will aim to install 100 or 110% of your usage. So normally you'd see even more rollover credits, but this might be a situation where the homeowner uses more energy than there's room on the roof or something like that. One final thing to note is that ComEd has a rule that says that you can't install a system that would produce more than 110% of what you used over the past year. And that's calculated based on your previous 12 months of usage. So you can only install a little bit extra, which it's ultimately a good thing because if you were to install a bunch of extra solar, you would just end up losing all those credits in April anyway. So this is what your bill will look like with net metering. This is the back of your ComEd bill under meter information. Instead of having one line, you now have 2 lines. And so it's measuring kilowatt hours from the grid and kilowatt hours to the grid. In this example, the home used 420 kilowatt hours and sent 600 kilowatt hours back to the grid. That results in 180 kilowatt hours of rollover, and that's going to be listed under the miscellaneous section of the bill. And then there's also credits being applied to all 3 sections of the bill: supply, delivery, and taxes and fees. But even though this is a month where the home is having a lot of rollover and extra credits, the bill is still about $15. That's because of these 2 fixed charges under delivery. So the customer charge and the standard metering charge are not offset by the net metering credits, and that's why your bill, the lowest it can go is about $15. But if your system is sized to offset everything that you use over the course of the year, those credits will roll over and they'll keep your bills about this low year round, which is good. And we'll coordinate with the library to send out all of our follow-up resources, but we have a virtual packet that has a lot of really good information about solar. And one of the things that it includes in there is more information about net metering, both in ComEd and in the other utilities that are in the Chicagoland area. There's some areas like Naperville, Geneva, Batavia that have their own utility companies. So we have information on all of that in the packet. Another thing you want to do when you go solar is you want to invest in energy efficiency. That's because energy efficiency investments have a greater payback and a greater return on investment than solar investment does. So you don't want to have a really inefficient home and then have to install a bunch more solar as a result. It's better to make your home more efficient at the same time. So some things you can do to make your home more efficient are upgrade your lighting to LED lighting. You can also swap out some of your appliances for Energy Star appliances. This can be especially impactful if you have like a really old fridge or a really old freezer in the garage. Weatherization is anything that's going to make your home cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. So that can often be things as simple as re-caulking around the windows or sealing for any cracks around the windows and doors that are letting air in. It doesn't always have to be as complicated or as fancy as all new windows or all new insulation. You can often achieve a lot of weatherization with simpler steps. Then there's also programs that will reward you for shifting your electricity usage habits off of peak times. So the packet that we send has more information about all of these energy efficiency programs. And even if you don't end up going solar, it's still a good idea to invest in energy efficiency because it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run, and in a lot of cases make your home more comfortable. And then it's also good for the environment as well. So it's like a win-win-win. So this is a checklist of questions to think about before you speak with a solar installer. You want to think about, does your roof have good solar exposure? You might already have a good sense of that if your home looks like this and there's not very many trees. But if you don't have a good sense of it, you might have to go look at Google Project Sunroof. Again, just take those estimates that Google Project Sunroof gives you with a grain of salt. The cost estimates are not always accurate. Just use it to see where on your roof might be good for solar. Then you also want to think about which direction is your roof facing. South is the best, but east and west also work well. Then when do you anticipate re-roofing? When you re-roof and you already have solar, it's an additional expense on the re-roof because you have to have the solar company come back out and uninstall the panels and then reinstall them all once the roofers finish their work. So it's an additional cost. So if you know that you're going to have to re-roof soon, it's best to do that before you go solar. And you can talk to a solar installer and a roofer about when might make sense to do that. But basically, if you're going to need to re-roof before you've hit the break-even point on your investment in the panels, you might want to do that first. You might want to re-roof first. And then finally, is your home energy efficient? So we'll get into incentives for going solar now. The current incentives for purchasing a system in Illinois can reduce the total cost up to 60%. So we'll go through each of these two incentives in more detail on the next slides. But the first incentive is from the state of Illinois, and it's referred to as SRECs. That stands for Solar Renewable Energy Credit, and it can cover up to 35% of the cost of going solar. The next credit is from the federal government, and it's a 26% federal tax credit, so it covers 26% of the cost of going solar. These two credits you'll receive within 6 months to a year of going solar, and then the utility net metering credits that we already talked about will help reduce your bills going forward as long as you have the solar panels. So these two reduce what you originally owe, or help you earn back that investment quickly, and then the net metering credits will chip away at the rest of it over time. Then one final perk that we have in Illinois is we have a law that says that your homeowners association cannot block you from going solar, and they also can't fine you for going solar. So in that virtual packet, we have a link to that law in case you're in a homeowners association and that's relevant to you. We'll go through these in more detail now. So SREC, Solar Renewable Energy Credit, this is the credit from Illinois. The way that this credit works is that Illinois has a goal to hit 25% renewable energy by 2025. And part of the way they want to meet that goal is that if you put solar panels on your roof, they want to be able to count that towards their overall goal. But legally, they can't count your solar generation towards their goal unless they pay you for it. So the way this credit works is your solar company will determine how much solar energy you're going to generate over the first 15 years of your system being installed. Once they have that number, it'll be multiplied by a dollar amount per unit of green energy, and that'll be used to determine the SREC payment that you'll receive. This process is a little bit complicated, but the solar company will handle it for you, but there is a contract that you'll have to sign in order to get this credit from the state. And typically this credit will come about 6 months to a year after your system is completely installed. And since the solar company is doing the paperwork for you, and it's required that you have the solar company do the paperwork for you, they charge a processing fee. So typically they'll take about 10% of the SREC as their administrative fee. This credit is unfortunately on its way out, so it's a first come, first served credit. We don't know exactly how long it'll last, but we estimate that this credit won't be available past the end of the year until we pass a new renewable energy piece of legislation in the state. So if you know that you want to go solar, it's a really good idea to try to go solar as soon as possible so that you can lock in your spot in this state incentive program. Then the second credit is from the federal government. This is a tax credit that covers 26% of the cost of going solar. So it covers 26% of the total cost. That includes labor costs, the installation, all the parts, everything. It does not, however, include a new roof unless your roof is one of the rare situations where your roof requires a little bit of structural reinforcement before you can go solar. And the home needs to be owned by the taxpayer, but does not have to serve as the principal residence. So if you own a rental property, you could take advantage of this credit on that rental property as well. This is a non-refundable credit. So once you've determined what you owe, or the IRS has determined what you owe in taxes for the year, 26% of the cost of your solar project will just be deducted from what you owe that year. If that credit is worth more than what you owe, the remainder will roll over to the next year. So you have 2 years to take advantage of it. And if you have more questions about how that credit works or how to get the best value out of it, we recommend talking to a tax professional. This credit is also on its way out. It was at 30% of the project costs for a long time. And this year, 2020, is the first year that it went down to 26% of the project cost. Next year, it'll go down to 22% of the project costs. And then after that, it goes to 0. So if you know you want to go solar, it's best to do it before this declines any further, but definitely by the end of next year before this credit goes away completely. We'll get into your options for going solar now. If you want to go solar on your own home and install panels on your home, there's 3 ways to do that. The first way is to purchase the panels outright. With that, you will be able to take direct advantage of those 2 incentives, and typical payback time is 4 to 7 years. The second option is to lease the system. With a lease, you do not own the system. The solar company maintains ownership, and so they get to take advantage of those 2 incentives on your behalf. They use those incentives to reduce the cost of what they would charge you for that lease if those incentives weren't available, but there's no mechanism or requirement that they pass on a certain amount of that value to you. So you're not going to see the full value of those incentives like you would if you were to purchase the panels outright. The third option is a power purchase agreement, or PPA, and this is similar to a lease because you don't own the system, but instead of paying a set amount per month to the company, you're going to pay a rate per kilowatt hour. And so it's basically like you're just buying the energy produced by your panels. And under this, you'll pay more in the summer months when your panels are producing more, and less in the winter. Some things to look out for with leases and PPAs is that a lot of them include cost escalators. That's a line in the contract that says that the amount that you're paying will go up 2% or 3% every year. That sounds like a small increase, but because these are often 20-year contracts, even a 2% or 3% increase in what you're paying over the course of 20 years means that you can be paying 50% more by the time that your contract is up compared to when it started. So look out for that. You also want to check the contract to see what happens if you move, because a lot of leases and PPAs have unfavorable things in them for if you move. And then finally, CUB recommends that you never sign a solar lease without first exploring your ownership options. That's just because for most homeowners, it's going to be a lot more affordable to buy the system and take direct advantage of those incentives than it will be to lease the system. And there's lots of really good financing options available. So even if the upfront cost of solar is not affordable to you, there's lots of good financing options that can get you from the installation point to the point where you're receiving that money back from the state and federal government. The next program I want to talk about is community solar. This is a new program in Illinois for people who can't install solar on their own property for whatever reason. So the way that this works is that there's a bunch of these large community solar farms being built all across Illinois. And if you want, you can subscribe to one of these projects. All of the offers that are currently available guarantee savings. And when you sign up, the community solar company will look at your energy usage and will use that to determine your subscription size. So you can think of your subscription size as how many panels you're subscribed to. Could be 8 panels, could be 20 panels. It depends on how large your home is and how much energy you use. Oops. So each month your subscription will generate solar energy, and the community solar company will keep track of how much energy your subscription generated. You'll now pay 2 bills. You'll pay your existing electric bill, but your existing electric bill, you'll have credits representing how much energy was generated by the system. So your existing electric bill will be lower than it was before. And then you'll also pay a monthly bill to the community solar company. But because these projects are so highly incentivized by the state, the community solar company is able to offer the energy generated by the panels at a lower rate than Con Ed offers energy. And so even though you're paying 2 bills, you're saving money overall compared to before you signed up for the program. CUB has a new resource called solarinthecommunity.com, where we break down what to look for in an offer. We also have a graphic that shows you how it will work with going from the 1 bill to the 2 bills. And we also have a comparison chart that compares the 3 offers that are currently available to Illinois residents. So it's a great place to learn more about how to participate in community solar. The final new program in Illinois I want to talk about is Solar for All. Solar for All is Illinois' new low-income solar program. It includes incentives for community solar, residential solar, and solar for nonprofits. If you go solar through Solar for All, the companies that offer through this program are required to offer you a no money down offer, and they're also required to pass on savings to you through your energy bills. So in most cases, Solar for All offers are actually structured as leases, but because this is a program that's designed to make solar accessible for low-income people, and because these projects are highly incentivized, the state is making sure that you're seeing those savings. So it's the one case in which a solar lease is going to be your best bet, is if you qualify for Solar for All. To qualify for Solar for All, you must be at or below 80% of area median income. Area median income varies by household size and by region, but for all the counties that are part of the group by footprint, they're all considered to be within the same Chicago area. So for DuPage County, the cutoff for a family of 4 is $63,200 total household income. And you can visit IllinoisSFA.com to learn more and to see if your household would qualify, because there's a lot of different, it varies based on household size. So you can check there. So we'll get into the Solarize Chicagoland group buy now. This is a model that's been used by the Midwest Renewable Energy Association all across the Midwest. And it's a model that other nonprofits and groups have used all across the US as well. But it's had a lot of success here in the Midwest. They've run 34 different programs, including a bunch in Illinois. So they've run programs in Metro East, they've run programs in Central Illinois, and then these dots up here are from the installations through the program last year. The way that a group buy works is that we're basically pooling together a bunch of homeowners who want to go solar and having them go solar through the same company. And because we're sending a bunch of people to one company, the company's able to offer a lower rate for that solar. And so the company was selected through a competitive request for proposal process. We put out a request for proposal at the beginning of the year that was open to all solar installers in the state of Illinois to respond to. And then from those responses, we scored them with a rubric that looked at things like hiring practices, how long they've been in Illinois, how many projects they've completed, what equipment they use, and the pricing. But there was a lot of factors that went into the rubric. And we had an advisory committee score the proposals. The advisory committee was made up of members from each of the 4 counties. So we had county staffers from Cook County, DuPage County, Will County, and Kane County, all helping score, as well as staff from CUB. And then that whole process was overseen by the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. And so through that, we selected wind-free solar. And I'm going to pass it to Adam to talk a little bit more about wind-free solar, and then we'll talk more about how the group buy will work.
Thank you, Christina. So Windfree was founded over 10 years ago. In 2009, we are a Chicago-based company, and we are only in Illinois, in the Illinois area. We're not, out all over the country. So in addition to just residential solar, we are also commercial solar installers. We work with businesses, nonprofits, government institutions like the U.S. Marine Corps. We've worked with DePaul University, and we installed the very first Habitat for Humanity home in Illinois. And also, in addition to solar, we also do electric vehicle charging stations, sustainability consultations, and LED retrofits. And then for the program, what we are offering a completely turnkey system that includes permitting and engineering, all of the incentives and applications, labor, materials, everything. We are also offering a very strong warranty. That's a 15-year workmanship warranty, in addition to the manufacturer's warranties, which is 25-year power warranty on the panels, 12 years on the inverter, and 25 years on those power optimizers. So as Christina mentioned earlier, one of the very first things that we are looking for when we are speaking with prospective clients would be a copy of their ComEd bill so that we can properly tailor the system to the needs of those clients. And finally, even though we are offering a significantly reduced price for the project, we are still using top of the line materials and best practice when it comes to installations.
Great, thank you, Adam. So with this program, the base price covers everything that the typical home will need to go solar, but there are certain things that make your system more complicated that would be considered additional costs. So those are things like if you have a detached garage and you want to install solar both on the garage and your home, that would make the wiring and the more complicated, and that could increase the cost. If your roof is particularly steep or particularly tall, that could increase the cost. So there's certain things that would increase the cost, but by keeping them separate, it keeps the base price lower for everyone else, and most people won't need any of those cost adders. So with the base price is for Q-cell panels with Solar Edge inverter. That's that combo inverter where you have the power optimizer in each panel, and then you have the main central inverter. That's the most common type of inverter to be installed in the Midwest. And so that base price is $2.63 per watt, which is equal to about $17,000 for the average system size pre-incentive. And on the next slide, I'll show you how the incentives all stack up to make that a lot more affordable. But in addition to this base price being lower than what Windfree would offer outside of the program, there's also a series of 4 goals. And as we hit these different goals, the price will come down further, and you'll see that through a rebate. So we've already hit the first 2 goals. We're really close to hitting this 3rd goal as well. And so once we hit this, for the average home, that'll be a rebate of $975. And if we hit all 4 goals, it'll be a rebate of about $1,300. But the rebate will vary based off of how many goals we hit and your system size. Here we have a comparison of what the cost looks like going through the group buy versus what the cost looks like outside of the group buy. Again, these are all just example numbers, but it's just designed to give you an idea of how these incentives will stack up to make your system more affordable. So on the left, we have pricing with the group buy, and on the right, we have pricing outside of the group buy. We're comparing the same home, just whether or not you went solar through the program. So it's same system size and everything like that. So the installed cost through the group buy, again, about $17,000 for the average home. Compared to outside the group buy, it's about $19,500. This is based off the average price of solar in Illinois. Then they would both, under both circumstances, you would get the same Illinois SREC, about $8,000, because again, we're comparing the same home, just whether they went solar through the program or not. Then with the tax credit, your tax credit would actually be a little bit higher outside of the group buy. So that's because the tax credit is only based off of the sticker price. And so if you pay more, you get a bigger tax credit. And then the additional group buy discount, that rebate would only come through the program, which brings you to a net cost of about $3,300 through the program and about $6,400 outside the program. Again, these are just examples. You're going to want to get a quote and to get a better idea. But we just wanted to show you that, don't be scared off by the $17,000 sticker price, because there's a lot of really good incentives available right now. So in terms of next steps, I will coordinate with the library to send out a follow-up email. The follow-up email will have a link where you can request a site assessment, and it'll also have links to all of CUB's solar information, so you can learn more about community solar, you can learn more about energy efficiency programs. And if you do get a quote, either through this program or through any other solar installer, you're going to want to be ready to show electric bills that will show 12 months of usage. So if you're a ComEd customer, you only need to show one bill, because they have a graph on the front that shows all your energy usage. But if you happen to be with a different utility company, you might need to dig up more bills. And then you always want to think about ways to become more energy efficient, even if you don't end up going solar. And then we also have more power hours coming up. We have about 10 more. So if you found the information useful, we would appreciate you spreading the word to your friends, because like we said, this year is really the best year to go solar because of those incentives that are on their way out at the state and federal level. So you can visit solarizechicagoland.com to learn more and see the full power hour schedule. If you want to learn more about CUB, you can visit citizensutilityboard.org. We have lots of really great resources on energy efficiency and how to save money on your bills. We also have information about clean energy legislation that we're fighting for in Springfield. And then we're also running a virtual utility bill clinic right now. So you can send your bills in to ubc@citizensutilityboard.org. And one of our staffers will go over your bills and we'll look at your usage, use that to recommend programs that are going to save you money, and also we'll make sure that you're not being overcharged by an alternate supplier. So that's normally something we do in person, but given everyone staying at home, we've switched to doing this online. Then if you want to learn more about the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, you can visit their website, midwestrenew.org. If you go solar through the program, you'll be gifted a free one-year membership to the MREA. That'll give you discounts off of their online classes and access to a bunch of their other materials. Or you can just join as an individual member if you want to help support renewable energy education throughout the Midwest and just learn more about what's going on with renewable energy in the Midwest. So here's our contact info. This is the website for the program where you can access a recording of a presentation and a bunch of other information about solar. And then once that little black bar goes away, you can see my email, which is solarize@citizensutilityboard.org, or that phone number, 312-292-5871 is my direct line that rings through to my cell phone during shelter in place. So I don't know if we have any questions or not, but we're happy to take any questions that you have about the program or about going solar in general or about renewable energy. We're happy to do our best with whatever questions you have.
It looks like we have two so far. The first question from Dave: will there be a record of the session to be available for replay? It is being recorded. I believe it will be available on the library website. And Christina, you said that you also make recordings available as well on the CUB site? Okay.
Yeah, we have a recording of a previous presentation that's available on the Solarize Chicagoland website, but it's the same info, it's just a previous one.
Okay. Okay, and then Joe wants to know, is energy storage for emergency power feasible at this time?
Or you add it, and then I'll add on.
Okay, so I would say that it is feasible. Batteries are expensive though, and they're relatively uncommon at this time due to that high cost. They are about $10,000, though it does an average and depends on the size of battery and the size of the loads that you're looking to offset. Generators are still a better option at this time.
Okay.
Christina, feel free to follow that up.
Yeah, as Adam said, the battery technology is a lot newer than solar technology. So solar technology has been around for a long time and has already gotten a lot more inexpensive and a lot more affordable. But since battery technology is newer, we expect that the price will really come down a lot in the next like 5 to 10 years. So it's, given how little solar we have installed in Illinois right now, it's not really recommended to install a battery right now unless you want to be like right on the cutting edge, because it's going to increase the cost a lot. And you already get the benefit of net metering, which gives you the ability to get credited for all the energy that you generate. So that kind of reduces the need for a battery, but it is available if you want to be on the cutting edge.
Okay, got a few more. Jill wants to know, if you get a federal tax refund, would you still get the benefit from the tax credit? Thanks.
That would depend. I've anecdotally heard that it can still work. I think you might have to like adjust your withholding or something, but I am not a tax expert, so I would recommend talking to an accountant or a tax expert on what you could do to best take advantage of it. But it will roll over to the next year, so that gives you like an extra year to figure out how to take advantage of it for you. But I wouldn't know beyond that.
Right, agreed. It's a tax credit, not a tax rebate, so it's going to lower your taxable income. So even if you're going to get a refund, you're still eligible for it. But like Christina said, you should definitely speak with a tax accountant for individual advice.
Okay, another question from Dave. Is there a way to operate offline in case there is an outage of the power company?
So again, it would be a battery or a generator would be the only options in this case.
Okay, from Bob, is there any maintenance of the panels required after installation?
It's very minimal, the amount of maintenance that needs to be done, and you have a dashboard which shows you if any panels are not performing properly, and you'd be able to diagnose any issues very quickly. And since everything is under such long-lasting warranties, there's not really anything that needs to be done ahead of time.
Okay, and then one more question from Jill. Would it make sense to get solar panels on your home and do community solar, or would you want to do one or the other?
With that, you can do both, but you still have to follow that 110% cutoff. So the only reason you would want to do both is if you're in a situation where, for whatever reason, you could only install like half the solar that you needed to power your home. Maybe because your roof has shading problems or something like that, then you could sign up for a community solar subscription to make up for the rest of your energy usage. But if you are able to install solar, installing solar is going to save you significantly more money than community solar will, because community solar will just save you a little bit of money each month, which is great and it adds up, but it's not like a thing that you are investing in that you own that will then pay for itself on your roof. So the savings are really not comparable, even though community solar is still savings and is still good.
Okay, any other questions for our speakers?
I'm happy to stay on for a couple more minutes if people are mid-typing. But thank you so much.
Oh, I see one. Okay, can I give my email to get in touch with folks? Here. Jill, did you want to email our speakers directly, or?
I just put my email in the chat. If you're looking for a site assessment, feel free to reach out to me directly.
Yep.
Or Christina's email is also in the presentation earlier. So.
Correct. Does that answer your question, Jill?
way to, I don't know, is there a way where you can email all the attendees the resources that we have, or no, because of the way you share the link?
I think I don't have a full email list for everyone. So can they request them from you if they want one of the packets?
Yes, they can. It's also available at, I can pull up the link really quickly. 1 second. So it's just it's a virtual packet. So it's,
Okay.
There's another question in the meantime, and I'll pull
Yeah.
this up and drop it in the chat.
What happens when it snows? How do you clean the panels?
So we don't advise necessarily people to go up on the roof to clean the panels, especially since it's probably pretty icy and we don't want to be responsible for people falling off ladders. But if you are courageous enough to go up there and clean them off a little bit, clean off like the edges of them, the panels would begin to produce power, heat up, and the rest of the panels would begin to clear themselves off. However, if you don't want to go up there, I don't blame you. Even if you did clean them off, it's snowing outside, so it's probably not going to be producing very much power anyways. So, yeah.
Oops, okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the chat so I can drop this link. Virtual packet. And then sign up for updates. But another thing, yeah, as Adam said, the months where there's snow are like not the months where we're producing a lot of solar power anyway. So even if you have a couple days where you're not producing any power because they're covered in snow, it's not going to significantly reduce your output over the course of the whole year. So you don't need to be worried about it. And then there's the spot where you can sign up for updates, and we'll email out updates. Oh, I realized it got really dark in here. I'm sorry. It's been in the dark all the time. Okay. Looks like we don't have any other questions, so thank you all so much for your time tonight. I hope that it was interesting or helpful.
It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being our speakers, and thanks everybody for attending.